Hello friends, it's Straw. Today, I will be telling you 3 spine-chilling stories about skinwalkers that are claimed to be true. First off, let me briefly explain what a skinwalker is. In Navajo culture, and in many other places around the world, a skinwalker is a type of evil person who turns to dark magic, who has the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise themselves as an animal. They wear the fur of the animal they want to transform into, but when they become the desired animal, people who claim to have seen skinwalkers describe them as an animal that looks like it doesn't belong in its own body. With that being said, let's get this shit started. Story 1 was submitted by Noble Savage.
I want to be anonymous due to the fact that I'm Navajo. The names in the story have been changed. As Navajos, we are not allowed to talk about skinwalkers, and I don't want my family to know the stupid things I did when I was younger. But I could not resist sharing a story. So the story starts with my older brother Shane and my younger cousins Lauren and Justin were left at my grandmother's house alone at night. We would be having the house to ourselves for the night. All of the adults went to a nearby relative's house for a dinner. Us being the oldest out of the kids, we wanted to do our own thing. We decided to go for a walk to a nearby pond and try some late night fishing. The pond we go to is near Cliff, and the trail to the pond is surrounded by a wooded area and is also near a cliff wall. As we gotten closer to the pond, my cousin Lauren started to talk about a game he plays with his friend at night where they try to summon a skinwalker. He started to talk about the details on how they would whistle at night or say out the Navajo word for skinwalker 4 times. Then Lauren started to taunt me, Shane, and Justin, saying that we weren't brave enough to play this game. So me being the fearless cousin and loving the chance to shut up Lauren, I found a big rock to stand on, having my back facing towards the wooded area, and started to yell out the word for skinwalker 4 times. After the 4th time there was a whistle. At that moment I knew I screwed up. I knew this whistle belonged to a skinwalker. The thing about a skinwalker whistle, it sends shivers down your back. The whistle will make you freeze, and it will have every hair on your body standing up. We gaze into the woods. The thing about the woods is that it is not a thick wooded area. At the end of the forest is a cliff wall. We scan the area trying to find the source of the whistle. We then realize it was coming from top of the cliff. As we gaze up, there was man standing on top. The man was average height and skinny. His skin was a grey pale color with black marks. This is what you call corpse paint. His hair was messy. His eyes were bright dirty yellow. He glared back at us. At this moment we are petrified. All we can do is glance back. He then kneels down. He slowly places his hand on the edge of the cliff. He then starts to climb down the cliff. His head face downwards to the bottom of the cliff, using all 4 limbs to climb downward. The best way to describe this is how Spider-Man climbs down a building. When he finally reached the bottom, that's when we booked it back to the house. As we were running back, you could hear an extra pair of footsteps right behind us. The sound of footsteps would change directions, going to the right side of us, then to the left of us, and back behind us. Curiosity came over me, and I took a place back. As I looked back, there was a coyote chasing us. I then remembered what my mother once told me: never look at a skinwalker directly in the eye, or the victim will fall very ill or perhaps die. I quickly turned my head forward and run. We finally reached my grandmother's house, where we run in and locked the door. We dare not to look out the window. As we settled down, we sat in the living room. Then the skinwalker started to tap on the living room window. We all jumped up and faced the window. Even with the curtains closed, the eyes on this thing could be seen shining from the other side. Then the skinwalker backed away from the window. When his eyes disappeared, a loud bang came above us. Footsteps could be heard as it ran around on the roof. It started to bang on the roof, torturing us. We all huddled together, putting our head down to the floor. The bang gained louder and more intense. And just like that it ended. I do not remember what happened, I just remember waking up on the floor with my brother and two cousins in the living room. As I fully awake, I went outside to see tracks around the house. These tracks belonged to a barefoot person. As I followed the tracks, headed back into the woods. That when I called quits and glanced towards the woods. Even after all of this happened, I still walk to the pond at night and fish. I was always told not to let this kind of people actions ruin the way they live. This is their own true purpose. That's why I continue to do what I normally do. Wow, what a story indeed. I bet you guys are wondering how a strawberry changes its voice. On to story number 3, by Reddit user The Miraculous Fox.
I always had a sort of draw to the supernatural. I'm an indigo child, and if you don't know what that is, let me explain a bit. I'm special in a way. I can sense spirits and their intentions. I can see auras and can manipulate energy in the room, but I digress. This isn't about that. This is about my encounter with what I believe to be a skinwalker. I live in southern New Jersey, very close to the Pine Barrens, home of the Jersey Devil. I'm sure you've heard of him. My backyard is pretty large. It has a large deck and a pretty big fenced-in yard. The fence backs up to a wooded area. There were always deer running around back there, owls, and even bats. On this particular night, I awoke out of a deep sleep to a tapping noise on my window. I was about 8 years old at the time, and the constant presence of spirits in my room was enough for me to be too scared to investigate any sort of noise in the night. I shivered under my covers, not quite sure what to do. I peeked through the blankets just enough to see what looked to be a tall, thin figure standing at my window. You see, my room was in the middle of my house, and my window faced the wooded area behind my house. I waited a couple minutes and the tapping eventually stopped. Then not a moment later, I heard a voice calling my name. It was my mother's voice, but at the same time it wasn't. It sounded so scripted. I heard more tapping, and the voice still calling, but it was coming from the back door. The back door was in the kitchen and lead out to my deck. I mustered the courage to get up and I tiptoed to the edge of the kitchen doorway. I saw a figure at the back door window in the shape of a woman, tapping and calling my name in my mother's voice.
"Kelly, dear, please let me inside,"
the thing said. It sounded as if it was projecting the voice straight into my head. I was a smart kid. I tiptoed to my mother's room and quietly opened her door. There she was in bed, softly snoring. I noped my way right back into bed and hid under the covers. The tapping at my window started again, but I didn't dare look again. Eventually, I fell asleep to the tapping, and when I awoke in the morning, I told my mom what happened. She frowned and rubbed my head and sighed.
"You have such an imagination."
She smiled and continued doing whatever she was doing. I went outside in the morning and there were footprints on the ground where my window was. I showed my mother. She was still skeptical, but she let me sleep in her bed that night and we said a prayer before bed. That was the only time that ever happened, and I hope I never have to see that thing that I believed was a skinwalker again.
Wow, that was scary. Make sure you all don't talk about skinwalkers outside. Please like and subscribe, and I hope you all enjoyed. Comment down below who has better stories, me or Blue.
And as always, stay very scary, my friends.